All right. So at 12, I was pregnant with my first child. At 13, I had him. Wasn't easy. Well, it was kind of easy. My dad made it a lot easy for me with going through school and everything. But I pretty much raised my brother already. I had been raising him since the age of 3, and I was 9 when my mom had left. But just seeing my dad struggle with us and everything. I actually had wanted that house when I had got older or whatever. But we made it through. Went through high school, graduated. Finally got my own place. I had wanted to. My intentions was to go ahead and go to college, graduate from college, and own my own business because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. But it didn't. Plans don't go always as you plan. So what I did was we kind of struggled. We had end up I had to drop out of college in order to have a full-time job to try to raise the kids and everything. And then I had to move back home, and that wasn't easy and wasn't going like it was supposed to. So after a little time back at home, I had to leave and had to leave the kids there, and while I tried to get myself together. But it actually, me and Keith had been together. We've been together 11 years, but we was living in the back of a Ford Explorer. Was looking for somewhere to go. Still working, but part-time work, not really paying anything. Still looking for somewhere to stay. I don't know why I was looking for somewhere to stay. I was only making like $300 every 2 weeks, but I was determined that I was going to get back on my feet and get going again. So I finally found a place that was on Craigslist. We was renting from there. It was a fixer-upper home. It was kind of like, if you fix it up, you can stay here for $300 a month. I was like, $300 a month, we can afford that. But it was an abandoned house, and found out that it was a scam altogether. So it was like a house that had belonged back to the government because it was a THDA loan or something, and he was just getting the money every month. And I'm talking about the house. The bathroom floor had fell in. I fell in the bathroom, like went through the floor. But it was gopher rats, birds. We woke up one day, it was a squirrel in the house with us. I'm talking about, it was so cold in there. Then in the summertime, it was so hot. It was no heat, no air, no anything, but it was a roof. And finally, I guess we got a notice from the the bank that owned the property, and told us that we had to vacate the premises. Well, in the time of us living there, I had got another job, and it was a full-time job. It wasn't much more. I think I was making maybe $9.75 an hour or something like that. But it was 40 hours a week. At first, it was only 20 hours a week. So once I started, I guess God was transitioning me. That's what he was doing, because once I got that job, we got that letter, and then we had to vacate the premises. And so I was like, where we gonna go? Well, we end up finding somewhere that was affordable. It was $575 a month. It was 2-bedroom townhouse. When we was at Arthur, the abandoned house, the kids wasn't able to stay there with me. No, I couldn't do it. So they had to continue to stay with my mom. So I was back and forth, taking them back and forth to school off, what little gas money or whatever we had. Once we moved into the townhouse, it was stayed there probably about 8 or 9 months, and I ended up losing the job. And I was like, oh man, here we go again. So a week after I had lost my job, I got a letter in the mail from HUD Housing, or MDHA Housing, and it had stated, your application has been approved, and that you can come in to do your full application process. And so I was like, okay, God, I see you working, okay. But me, I had never lived in public housing before, and me growing up in a home, I know it wasn't the best of home, but I was like, I don't want to live in, public housing. I don't want to live in the projects, and it took Keith to kind of reset my mind frame, because he was like, okay, we finna go back in the truck if we don't take this, what we're gonna do. So we went ahead and accepted the place or whatever. We lived there, but I was not comfortable with living there. I didn't like the environment. I didn't like, coming home, because at that time, when I lost that job, I ended up working for a temp service. It was through Randstad Staffing. It was for Cigna Health Spring, and as a child, I always had a vision of working in an office setting, and I had my own desk and everything. So it was like, oh man, I get my own desk and everything. And so when I was there, she had told me already that the only way that you're going to lose this job is if you end it. It has to be something that you do. She said, but we do plan on making you all temp to perm. And I was like, oh man, here you go. Hey Lord, thank you so much. So while I was doing this, I had made a decision when we moved into public housing. I was like, this is not where we're going to end up at. I had already had a dream long time ago that we're going to have a house. It's going to be a 2-story, a 3-car garage. We're going to have 3 vehicles, 2 cars in the truck. I had this vision, and God had already gave it to me. And so I was like, okay, so now we're about to start the process of, trying to get something better. We got to get out of here. And then I was kind of scared because I had been used to paying $50 a month in rent, and I was, I can make that because I was working temp, and it was a roof. We wasn't sinking through the floor or anything, and I was like, okay, we can do this. But I was kind of scared. I was like, now I'm making more money. They're about to take this. They're about to take that, and they're not going to give me this assistance anymore. And it was kind of scary, but I had to walk out and step out on faith, and ask God to just lead me every step of the way. And so I had been looking forever, trying to find somewhere to rent, because it wasn't easy trying to say, hey, I'm coming from paying $50 a month in rent to now I can afford your $1,100, $900 a month. So nobody was kind of giving us a chance. Like, okay, I'm sorry, but you don't meet the qualifications. So we went out to paying application fee after application fee after application fee. Nothing ever came through. But I didn't give up. I said, okay. I actually even tried to purchase a home during that time, but because of my debt to ratio, because of student loans from when I was previously in school, I wasn't able to actually close. I wasn't actually able to qualify for the home at the time. So I said, okay, I'm not going to give up there. So at that time, I was about to transition. No, I had lost the job. They ended up letting us go. When she told us that they was going to make us permanent, that didn't work. I was so discouraged. Because that was the most I ever made in my life. I was making $11 an hour. I know that's not a lot to a lot of people, but when you come from making $5.15 from bagging groceries at 15 years old to $8 an hour forever to maybe $9 at your most to $11 an hour, I was like, ooh, thank you, Lord. So I was like, Keith had to help me reset my mind frame again, because I was like, now I done lost this job, what I'm gonna do? Now I'm gonna have to go back to making $8 an hour, and we gonna still be stuck in the same place. I was just like, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do now? So once we got to that issue, I did end up getting a job only making, I think it was $9 an hour. But I was like one of their top agents, so they had put me on a special project to sell textbooks. So I was making a little bit more, and I was dedicated to it. I had to reset my mind frame. I'm like, okay, go in here and act like you're making on $11 an hour still. Make it, you're that cheerful person. Do what you normally do. So I went in there, and, everybody loved me, and I was doing an awesome job, and I even teach some people the way that I sell the textbooks, and, even taught them, like, this is what you say, or this is how you do it. So at that point, I didn't give up. I continued to still apply for jobs, because I knew in me that I had to be making more than $11 an hour to get to where I wanted to go, because $11 an hour is just like making $9 an hour after taxes. So I continued to look for better jobs. I continued to go on interviews while I was at that job making $9 an hour, and it came through. I got a phone call while I was sitting at work one day, and she said, and no, it was a guy, and it was from a out of town number, so I'm thinking it's a scam again. I'm like, he was like, yes, you put in an application, we would like for you to come in for an interview, and he was talking like in a foreign kind of voice, like computerized or something. I was like, what job is it? And he was like, you applied for it? I said, yeah. He was like, I said, where you want me to come to? He was like, the job is actually for Cigna Health Spring. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait a minute, God. Because they had just let me go. So, and this was 2 months down the line. So I went through the process of going through the interview and everything. And when I walked out from the interview, you know how you're nervous when you do an interview. So when I walked out from the interview, I kind of felt confident. And then I see my old supervisor, and they had gave me so much praises to the managers that I was interviewing with. And they was like, "We glad to have you back." I said, "Well, not yet. We gonna see. You know, I'm waiting for a phone call." So they gave me a phone call, and they gave me the phone call, and I started crying immediately. I was back at work at the $9 an hour job. I started crying. I was so happy. And I was like, "I got the job." And he was like, "Okay, so we're just going to go over your pay with you." And I was like, "The pay, you already told me to pay. You said $14.90. He said, "No, I told you a minimum of $14.90. I started crying again. And he was like, "Okay, we want your start date to be on this date." And I started, and then I was like, "Okay, now I know for sure they're finna try to charge me." We're still living in the projects, so I was knew for sure they was finna get ready to try to charge me like maybe about $800 for 700 square foot. And I was like, "Nope, we're not finna do this. We're definitely finna go." And so continue to look. Team Wilson gave me a chance. You all said, "Okay, we believe in people giving them second chances and everything. Well, we know this is what you got to do. This is the paperwork." I filled out my application fee. It was not wasted. Thank you, Jesus. And then I still knew from that point, though, that I didn't want to continue to pay $1,100 a month for something that'll never be mine. I wanted me and my family to have our own. So I was like, I'm going to continue this process. I started with, I didn't start with Wells Fargo. I had went with, I was just continuing to look. I started with trying to clean up my credit with, and this was before I even moved, but I tried to clean up my credit with one of those companies that you pay them monthly to try to fix your credit. So I did that and tried to, they sent me some dispute letters. I had to sign them. I sent them off. All kind of collection agencies came after me after I did that, because you have to put a return address on them. They came back with the sheriff's office at my door. So I was like, oh man. So I had to start with cleaning those up and everything. And once we, so after that process, I was helping a friend look for a home. When I was helping her look for a home, I had called a lady, and I was like, "Is this a scam?" Because by now I'm so used to scam. I'm like, "Is this a scam?" Because it says that you can get these big old beautiful 2,000 plus square footage homes in Mount Juliet. I'm talking about beautiful homes that you know that it's about $300,000-$400,000 for Section 8. And I was like, she was like, "No, we take Section 8. And I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, I was just looking for a friend. I'm actually looking to buy a home myself." She said, "Well, that's what my main thing is." And I was like, "Okay." And she was like, I said, "Well, I'm not actually ready right now because I have a debt to income ratio, situation because of my student loans." She said, "Well, are your student loans in default or something like that?" I said, "No, actually, I'm on an income payment plan where I don't pay anything monthly because of my, income to my living stability." And she was like, "I just closed on a home like 3 days ago with a case just like yours." And I was like, "Okay." She said, "Well, this is the first thing I need you to do." And she had me contact Wells Fargo Bank. And when I contacted them, he said I was approved. And I was like, "I'm approved?" He was like, "Yep, I'm going to send you a pre-approval letter, and I'm going to send it over through the email and everything." But me not actually ever going through this process before, I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know the process or anything. And he was like, "You can go out and start looking for a home. You're pre-approved for $150,000. I was like, "Okay." Well, when I had questions, he was never there. He could never answer the phone or anything. And I was going through this lady that had these Section 8 homes on Facebook. She was trying to force me into signing these papers and everything. And I was like, I just don't feel comfortable with this situation. So I had spoke with David at Team Wilson, who I was already written from. And he was like, "No, Trudy, no, we're going to help you with that. We're going to help you." And, he said, "I'm going to get you with my partner, I think Scott and Chad." And everybody just started reaching out to me. He started sending me listings and everything. And so I was telling him, I was telling him that I already had a pre-approval and everything, but I wasn't comfortable with who I was with. And so Chad said, "I have someone for you," and he gave me Ben, and he has been so wonderful. with Human Mortgage, and we went through the process. It was a struggle. I'm sure everybody knows. But we finally made it happen, and I signed my papers today for my first home.